million, Claire, and really excited to be here with Sonia in discussion. I suppose just a minute about myself, and maybe Sonia might give a minute about your business as well. But as Claire mentioned, I have a creative agency. We're based in lovely West Cork, but we do have an office up in Dublin as well. And we do TV advertising, online brand campaigns, radio, print, billboard, for lots of lovely companies, and I can talk about that later as well. I suppose the thing is, I've worked with Sonia on one campaign for her business for the vitamin C two-phase serum, and I got to really know her business, and we were just really impressed with the why of her business and why she started it. So I think you're in for a treat to hear about this today. Sonia, I might start off with maybe reflecting back to when you did start Pestle and Mortar. I think it would be interesting, maybe can you describe how you initially tried to sell your business and your products, and maybe how that changed over time?
So our business is 6 years old this month. And when we launched our business 6 years ago, we launched with one single product, our pure hyaluronic serum. So we are stocked in retailers all around Ireland, and we also have global stockists in the UK, America, right across Europe. We now I've forgotten the question. So
I suppose, how did you first sell your company to people when you were trying to get into stockists?
Okay, so it starts with the story. So the story behind our brand, why I came up with the brand. So I come from the portrait photography business. Myself and my husband used to run a portrait photography studio, and it was here while we were educating professional photographers that I noticed that from looking through the back of his lens, a lot of women's skin concerns were that their skin was dry, dull, and patchy and dehydrated looking. And it was while traveling educating professional photographers in America that I noticed that a lot of the makeup artists were using products that contained hyaluronic acid in them on the model's skin, who didn't necessarily have good skin, but their skin did look amazing once these creams and serums were put on their skin. So I had an idea, and my idea was, why couldn't my customers in our studio have this product too? So I started to research skincare and discovered that skincare was really complicated. I found it really difficult to understand products and their effectiveness. And I decided that I wanted to simplify skincare and come up with a range that was simple to use, effective, and that worked. And from there, I grew on. I went back to my heritage and traditions that are in my family. So my grandfather, he was the medicine man in India, and my uncle still practices in the same spot today. So natural healing goes back in my family for over 100 years. And that's where the name comes from, pestle and mortar. It's an implement that you use to grind down herbs and spices and medicines. And that's what I named my brand.
I suppose, talking about your uncle and your grandfather, Sonia, I remember you mentioning it to me before. What kind of core values did you take from them and really instill them in your own business?
I suppose the core values I took was simplicity and natural. And I wanted the name of my business to reflect those core principles.
And I think, like, when you were selling your products to maybe outside the Irish market, at what point did you realize that your story was more important, like the product benefits aside and those fantastic ingredients that you do have? At what point did you realize that people are interested in your story as well as your product?
I think I discovered when I am a normal person like my customers. So I am a mother, I have daily struggles. I consider myself a normal, hardworking person. And I also, the skincare industry is really competitive. So what sets my brand apart from L'Oreal or any Estee Lauder brand? It's the story behind the brand. So I am a relatable person. And I think I can relate to my customer.
So it creates a whole new set of buying power for you, essentially.
Definitely, and people buy people. They don't buy, like, they're not buying. If you're buying a L'Oreal moisturizer, you're not buying, you know, you're buying L'Oreal there, but behind a smaller brand, a more indie cult brand, you have the trust of the founder.
What I think is interesting, Sonia, is actually in one of our pitch decks that we have to sell our services. When I hear you talking, one of our slides, it says that consumers that have a positive emotional association to the brand are 8 times more likely to trust the company and 7 times more likely to purchase. So, you know, I really think that rings true to a lot of brands that do kind of try to evoke their real story, and it puts them ahead of anybody else, really.
And I think that our brand, at the very beginning, we launched our brand with one product, and it took off not through our marketing efforts, it was through a word of mouth following. So, you know, it started with one customer buying it, telling their friend about it. And that's the way all of our products have been. It's been an organic growth.
Some people joke, Sonia, that e-commerce is basically a marketing company. Do you think that's true or not?
That
e-commerce businesses are just marketing companies.
Do I think that's true? That e-commerce businesses are marketing companies? I mean, look, you can have the best product in the world, but if you can't market it, you will have no customers. So
maybe slightly true. What I think is really interesting, Sonia, I think is I was watching a video about you talking about your QVC big break, let's call it, where you mentioned 1% of brands sell out. And you kind of really described coming off the stage and Americans being Americans, kind of going nuts side stage, cheering you on. Would you maybe describe to everybody what that experience was like for you?
So back in 2018, I appeared live on QVC in America with our most expensive product, our retinoid night oil, which was priced at $109. So the first thing to get onto QVC is it's a huge deal. They don't take any brand. We had to go through a grueling process of fly over to Pennsylvania, be interviewed, be accepted, and then from the day accepted, it took another 18 months to actually get our live on-air slots. And also for those 18 months, every Tuesday, I did a Skype call for training on my 7-minute slot. Yeah. So it was grueling, the process from start to finish. So in May in 2018, I flew over for my live QVC appearance. I was so scared. I was on Friday night live beauty. I nearly didn't go on stage. I was being mic'd up and I said, I honestly don't think I can do this. And she literally pushed me into the studio and said, you've worked so hard for this, you can do it. So on the slot, we were, I think it was 5 minutes into the cell. And you can hear, you have a mic in your earpiece in your ear, and you can hear everything that's going on, and you can hear, oh, they're half gone, the sales are a little bit slow. So I turned around to the presenter at 5 minutes and she said, no, she said, halfway is really good. If you can just tell me a little bit more about your backstory. They couldn't see us on TV. This was on the side. We'll get there. So at 5 minutes, she started asking me about my backstory. We'd flown over the Pestle and Mortar that was in my family for over 100 years. We had, a prop to talk about. And then coming up to this, I had 7 minutes, and coming up to the 7th minute, I think we had 200 products left, and they kept me on for an extra half a minute, so to sell out. And wow. It was like being a racehorse and getting to the finish and winning the race. So less than 1% of new brands sell out on QVC. And when I walked off, all of the other American presenters and brand owners were there, and they were screaming, clapping, shouting. and high-fiving me. We didn't know how much of a big deal it was back then. And I just burst out crying because not only did I have to present my product, but I had to sell it as well, all at the same time, and get my brand story across. And you know, on American TV, they're such pros at selling. That's what they do. They're really good at it. So, it was amazing. Amazing.
I suppose, Sonia, that event, what do you think that did to your outlook about your company after that? Did it change your attitude, confidence, self-belief? Did you need that to kind of believe that you could become a kind of a global success with your brand? Or what did it do for yourself going forward after that?
I think we got more recognized in the US, definitely. Immediately, we got stocked in all of the Bloomingdale stores across the US. And also, it was the most powerful marketing tool that we used. So we are known as the brand that sold out on QVC in America in 7 minutes. And everybody knows that about us. And subsequently, there's been a few brands that have gone on and, done what there's no other brand that's done what we have done, no other Irish brand. So we kind of led the whole QVC revolution, I think, in Ireland.
Sonia, I think what's really interesting when I follow your social accounts is that there are so many micro 1,000 level ambassadors for your product, especially people that work in the beauty industry, and they really believe your product, and they will come on and they will give their reviews. Is that something that happened organically? Like, can you tell us maybe a small bit about the hard graft and how to get awareness about your brand into that level of, they're not exactly, they are consumers of your product, but they are users and I suppose salespeople as such that aren't in your staff list, but they are salespeople of your brand?
I suppose what we've worked really hard at is the relationships that we have with makeup artists and influencers without paying them. So we always, when you could fly, when we launched a new product, I would fly to London and New York. And go into the city and meet all of the press, all the editors, some beauty influencers, makeup artists, and have one-on-one conversations with them. And I've been doing that for 6 years. So I got to know a lot of people in the industry, especially in New York, a lot of really like top makeup artists that do the makeup for Victoria's Secret's models, like really, I mean, top people. The beauty editor of magazine, he's a friend of mine. So loads, tons of really cool, really nice people. But I think that I put time into those relationships and nurtured them. And this time last year, we had the beauty editor of O magazine and his partner flew over to Ireland, and we treated them to 2 nights in Paris court. So we really invest in the relationship, and I become their, when I get on with them, I become their friend, and that has really paid off. So it's an authentic relationship. It's not like we're just paying people to talk about our brand.
Sure. And I suppose it's kind of like that graphic when people say about the success of your business is like, that graphic of the iceberg, and the tip of the iceberg is the success, what people see, but under the water is that your years of developing those relationships with people,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, today you can pay thousands, even millions. You can pay for a famous person or a famous makeup artist to talk about your brand, and sometimes that money it's not well spent, and it's not going to get you the sales. But we just work really hard at those relationships, and that seems paid off for us.
So we're about 2 minutes away from breakout rooms, and maybe after the breakout rooms, Sonia, I have a few questions about maybe reflections on your business and advice for others. But just before we go into them, somebody has just put up there that they'd love to talk about your packaging and your brand and the visuals. Is that something you and your husband developed yourselves?
Yes. So anybody that knows myself and my husband knows to run a portrait photography studio. And that studio was monochromatic. as well. So all of our photography, his photography was black and white. So when you walk into our building, everything is black and white. And then we have some greenery and planting around the place. So we work really hard at our brand image. It's so important because we may, you know, we're not Chanel, but we can sure as hell look like them. And if we want to get noticed as a global player in the beauty industry, and the industry that we are in, image is so important, and how our brand looks and feels is so important.
Perfect. And I suppose just 30 seconds, Sonia, before we go into the breakout rooms, Aisling Roach wrote, how do you see your ability to develop relationships in a virtual Zoom world when you were probably doing a lot of hard graft, a lot of coffees and over in the US with people?
It's really difficult. Really, really difficult. Thank God I have really good relationships formed, but all I can say is let's hope that we can start flying again next year. It is very difficult. So we launched a new product last week, and it was the first time that we actually did pay. We paid around 20 micro influencers. So, I mean, you know, it's really difficult.
Perfect. Claire, Sinead, are we ready to jump into breakout?
Yeah, all the rooms are open, so guys, just dive in.
Hi everyone, can you hear me? Yeah. Great, we're back. And Sonia, can you hear me as well? Yeah, great. So we're back. Thanks for everyone for going into the breakout rooms. Sonia, I suppose this part of it, I just want to maybe, when we were chatting previously, you had some nice, I suppose, tips for people and reflections on your own business. And any piece of advice that you would give others, maybe around your own personal time commitments and how you manage your day to day. Would you be able to maybe reflect on that for us?
I suppose I'm the type of person that I'm good at delegating. So, and also I know what I'm good at doing. So I tend not to do the things that I don't like doing. I suppose I have a team here, so I can delegate those areas that I don't like doing. But I am also good at saying no, so I don't say yes to everything that everyone asks me to do. And I suppose though, but that will come from the fact that I like to be home, you know, at a reasonable hour. I have 5 kids, you know, seeing them and having a constructive day, and coming home at the same time every day and starting work at the same time is important to me, and important for my family life. So I'm probably dictated a little bit more by that, but still I know, and I know what I like doing. So and I know what I don't like doing, and I don't do the things that I don't like doing. I made that conscious decision a long time ago because life is too short. And why else would you run your own business? In my view, if I have a team, and I can get people to do the things that I don't like doing or I'm not good at doing.
Well, I think if you're getting home at the same time-ish every day, you're doing number one good job there, you know. Sinead, did you have any pre-assigned questions maybe that you want to pad out?
So hi everyone, how are you? Yeah, we had a number of questions that people submitted to us online in advance, so thank you very much for that. I've kind of summarized some of them because a number of them were kind of along the same vein, and I'm going to address these predominantly to both of you guys, so if you want to take turns in replying any way you kind of see fit. Maybe one, Grainne, for you to kind of start off with, seeing as you've been asking most of the questions so far. This is just a personal question as to what made you decide to pivot from your role in the Ludgate Hub, where you were kind of, you know, one of the most important figures in getting that off the ground in Skibbereen, and start up your own storytelling business, for the want of a better word?
Yeah, I think it was a mix of two things. So I became the CEO of the Ludgate Hub when I was just 27. So I was very young when I did that. It was one of the most amazing experiences to work with the board of the Ludgate Hub when you have the likes of Anne O'Leary and Vodafone, Dee Forbes, and all of those people. And I learned so much from them. I had about 10 mentors. And as part of my role, I had to develop fundraising. I remember one part they asked me to fundraise for the building, and I remember asking for my first €5,000 off someone, and I was nearly fainting. And then 2 months later, I was asking for 200 grand, and it was nothing, you know. So I started to kind of develop a bit more confidence in the role. I got the building opened, and I think the core thing for me was the marketing around it. So my degree is actually in sustainable development in history and geography. I have no marketing degree, but what I do have is a knack for storytelling. We had no marketing budget for the Ludgate Hub, but I managed to get it on local news, national news, US newspapers. And I remember big brands like AIB and Vodafone would always ask, who's our marketing team? And we used to run an event, Digital Week, for 2 years. And I remember Paddy Cosgrave in the Web Summit text me saying, we've just out-tweeted them in terms of impressions. And then I realized I really did have a knack for marketing and selling a story. So at the time, I was also managing a seed investment fund. And I boldly asked Sean O'Driscoll, one of the board members, would he back me? And a lovely, lovely person, another investor who I met in a farmer's market in Skibbereen, and they both backed our company, and we started from there. And I think the passion just to start the business was that I loved to craft really high quality stories. And like our first campaign, let's say for Super Value, which we got a really good break to do that. It was the first time Super Value started to allow their local branches to do their own marketing. And we told this gorgeous story about the islands and what the local delivery from Skibbereen Super Value meant for them. And I got 1 million organic views. And I realized, okay, we have something that we can sell to companies, no problem. So that was really a kind of an incremental pivot into what I'm doing now.
And sorry, I'll move to Grainne in a second, but speaking to that piece that you got with Super Value, like what do you think was it that separated you from somebody else? Was it that you were somebody local and had already, demonstrated your capacity to do something great from the ground up, as opposed to, say, going to a more established company that would have had a portfolio of work that they could have looked at?
I think Super Value was our first big break. It was purely down to the connections I had in Ludgate, and we convinced them that we would put our heart and soul into it. We spent 2 months filming it. We interviewed 40 people on Cape Clear Island, Sherkin Island, and there was one woman called Kitty, and she was 85, and everybody was nearly crying watching this piece of content, but she would say, it gives me independence that I don't have to rely on anyone to get my shopping. And I always joke that Kitty made us 50 grand because people would come to us saying, can we have a Kitty video, And I think it was really, we before we did that, we did a US course on storytelling and how to create a story arc in video marketing. And once you can hit those points, people remember your content and video. So we used, it's not a formula as such, but it is a structure in storytelling to get across that. And people did come back to us over the last 2-3 years. 90% of what we do is organic leads. We don't do much marketing of our company, unfortunately, but we should probably do more. But it is kind of, as Sonia mentioned before, word of mouth and referrals as such.
Okay, and for both of you guys, I've been kind of speaking to that. One of the things that's part of a question that was submitted online is somebody talked about the fact that their product is only 10% of what they do. And then they felt that the other 90% of their work was in kind of like selling that product and getting their story right. So for both of you guys, like how much time do you think, realistically speaking, if a lot of our audience this evening are people who are either solo entrepreneurs or in women founders in early startup stage, how much time should they be anticipating having to spend dedicating to get their story right? And if no previous experience in doing that, and that it's that whole thing of I make soap or I have a services business or whatever, where do you start? Learning how to tell your story.
I suppose in a structural way, definitely I would go on Vimeo and on websites like that to look at other businesses as how they curate their story. I think there'll always be that emotional arc, you know, there will be that kind of, you know, snap of why you wanted to do something, and pulling that through it and making it relatable, as Sonia mentioned previously before. There is a structure to it. If you Google Muse storytelling, that was the course we did in the US, but they might have some maybe assets online. And if you look on our website, you'll see that structure coming through in a lot of the work we did for a recent piece for Revive Active about Sinead Kane, who was a blind marathon runner, and we wanted to pull through the emotive story that Sinead had and why that makes her such a valuable brand ambassador for Revive Active. So if you want to have a look at that, that's definitely a start. Sonia, do you have any other kind of add-ins to that?
You know, you have to understand that it's a story. So nobody can tell your story better than you yourself, once it's authentic. So, don't make up a story.
Yeah, so you can't force it. You have to, it's that whole thing of like, you know, I suppose don't be looking to make a business around an idea that you don't actually really understand yourself in the first place.
See through that. So if it's not an authentic story, you can't own it. So make sure that your story is authentic.
Okay. I think we have about 4 more minutes before we go back into breakout rooms. So I have another couple of questions we'll get in before then. How do you find the balance between separating the kind of personal story and kind of linking that emotive piece, especially in your case where you have your links back home and the whole medicine man thing and everything, which is actually very kind of current as well, I suppose, in the climate people are living in today, and the professional. So how do you separate the two, or how do you know when you're going too far in one direction or the other? Sonia, if you don't mind.
So I don't share a whole lot on my own Instagram, or I don't talk about my children, or so I don't share my family life at all.
Mm-hmm.
Complete. I only share my business life. So I would share, you know, what goes on in the office and about our products, and I really don't share any personal stuff. So,
okay.
Yeah, so and that's a decision that myself and my husband made. So I understand that I am not that type of person, and if I had to share it, I probably wouldn't do a good job at it. And also I have 5 kids, and I feel that it's up to them to share their story. You know, their story is not my story, and I have no right as their mother to talk about them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't share anything about my personal life at all.
Yeah. Grainne, have you any points on that?
I suppose I wouldn't have that luxury or maybe kind of discipline that Sonia has. I suppose just for my industry, Instagram is a big platform professionally and for my personal life. So my Instagram is a bit tamer than most people, because that's where we find a lot of new directors, new creatives. That's where our industry shares their work. LinkedIn, I think I have a different voice on, comparing to my Instagram, and Twitter as well. Twitter and LinkedIn are a bit more business. You'll see me walking on a beach on my Instagram, all right, but that's not what I'd put on my LinkedIn and Twitter. I think it depends on your personality. I think it really depends on how much you want to share it, but people I think are interested in why you do things. If you ever want to watch a video that really develops on that, I'd definitely encourage you. It's quite old, it's on YouTube. It's The Power of Why, Apple Marketing. And it's how Apple sells their products way better than any other computer hardware in the world. It's with Simon Sinek. It's really well done, and I encourage you to do it if you're starting off your business. And it gets you grounded into thinking, why is my business important for the world as such, not what it is. And it gets you to reflect your thinking that way, I think.
Okay. How are we doing, Claire, on time there? Have we time for one more question?
Yeah, we do, yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so what stories should never be told? Sonia?
You are.
I don't know, like my biggest thing is when I tell my clients, if we are saying we should go with this, I remember there was one client and the farmer that we were interviewing got so emotional about his story that he started crying, And there was this kind of awkward tension of, should we show this, you know, show this man crying? And I really had kind of a side chat with him, and he was happy for it to go online, which I was delighted about. And I always say to our clients, you know, if you're uncomfortable, that means you're making progress with your brand, with your marketing somehow. And it's not for everyone, but I think the best pieces of content, you'll see the content from Nike, you know, things that make people a bit uncomfortable strikes debate. It strikes people to ask questions. And it says a lot about the brand, but it is down to your brand voice, you know. Chanel will have a different brand voice to Paddy Power, you know, and there's different degrees of what they share and how extreme they go with their brand messaging as well. So I think it has to be authentic to your own brand. So I wouldn't say there's any limit to what you should be and shouldn't be sharing, but it's what's appropriate to your brand and to who your audience and customers are.
Yeah. And I suppose that speaks to Sonia and what she just said a moment ago, and that if it's not authentic, then don't do it. So I guess that's your answer, Sonia, is that, you know, don't tell the story if it's, you know, if it doesn't feel like it fits in with your brand and your messaging.
Yeah, correct. I mean, I'm probably the worst storyteller though. You know, I'm not native to Instagram and sharing my voice, and also I don't want to be the sole person responsible for selling our products. So I don't want my business to rely on me selling products. Yeah.
So would you say that do you rely more now on your like marketing team and on the people that surround you to kind of get that right, as in, you know what your product is and that you look to them then to make sure that the messaging is actually on point, and you can say, you know, when they do it, that feels right or not?
Yes, exactly. So I don't want to have to, I think, you know, I've spoken to a very few famous bloggers and in Ireland, and most of them have said to me, do you actually realize how lucky you are? And I said, why? Because you don't have to post about any of your products. And that, you know, and then I remember that, and I always remember that. So it's not down to me solely that my products are selling.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, Claire, maybe we'll leave it there, and we'll come back with just another couple of questions to finish off the session in a few minutes. So enjoy the second breakout session, folks, and see you back here in 15. Thanks very much. That you can delegate, that's lovely words, delegate stuff to. But at the start, I mean, I know when we talked before the event and stuff, you talked about like read everything, the mentors or kind of peers in the business and your links to enterprise, Ernst & Young, and then also the idea of there being no shortcuts and being early adapters to technology. And I mean, you might be able to go home now and have your schedule around your kids, but you've also set this business up with your husband. So I'm assuming that between the two of you, you know, you're doing all the hours, and that, you know, you have taken chances on new platforms and different ways of doing things when you're starting out. So could you share a little bit more about that with people for a minute or two, please?
Yeah, I think, I suppose at the beginning when we did set up Pestle and Mortar, we were still running our portrait studio. So because we work together, we eat out of the same pot. So we couldn't close our portrait studio until we had enough revenue from Pestle and Mortar. So we were running two businesses together. So there were times our studio was in Newbridge in the town, and there were times when 20-foot containers were pulling up and we were trying to unload them on a one-way street and stopping all the traffic and running out and taking all the boxes in. And also in our studio, when the phone rang, I didn't know whether it, you know, we to answer it saying like, hello, DC Photographic or Pestle and Mortar. So those were fun times. But we did, at the very beginning, we set up the website ourselves. We wrote all the copy ourselves. My husband did all the photography. He designed the packaging. I'm in charge of new product development. I still am. So I formulation and getting that right. And then we also were in charge of the marketing and PR together. And we literally did absolutely everything. but we also made sure that what we were doing, we were setting ourselves up to expand. So all of our systems were cloud-based. My husband's really good with systems. So we set up, like, our accounting system is online, cloud-based. Our inventory system feeds into that. And we had that at the very beginning because we knew that if we had to worry about things like that, that we couldn't focus and concentrate on the marketing of our business.
Yeah,
so
yeah, but there are no shortcuts when you're starting out. So even if you don't feel confident in doing this stuff and you don't necessarily have a budget to get somebody else to help you to do it, you just kind of have to find a way to start telling your story and put it out there and just improve as you go. And
absolutely. I mean, you know, a lot of the time, like, money is not the answer to things as well. So our first product paid for our second, for our third. Our products paid to move into this amazing building and do it up custom the way we wanted the brand to look. And sometimes if somebody had thrown a lot of money at us, maybe we would not be as successful. So we really thought about every step that we made, because it wasn't our first business either, and we had experience of running other businesses. So, you know, most of the time, I think that money is not always the answer, or investment is not the answer. We don't have any investment. So we run the business the way we wish to run it.
Yeah, and this is a question for both of you, yourself and Grainne, as women founders or co-founders. What's the best advice you can give when dealing only with a panel of male or male-dominated environment? And, you know, I suppose it's kind of like, do men and women speak the same language? And you know, how do you make sure you're getting your message across?
Yeah, I think I grew up with 4 brothers. And my parents are Indian, but my dad was very unique in that I have one sister, but he brought myself and my sister up to be completely independent. He used to always say to us, without your independence, you have nothing. He also encouraged us to, maybe I shouldn't say this, but he encouraged us not to marry an Indian man because he said that he brought us up to be too independent and they would never accept us. So I think that for me, I also went to a co-ed school, so I'm very used to masculine company and males. And at the end of the day, I don't really care what other people think about me.
I love that. Because we were chatting offline a while ago, and I was saying if Sonia did a course on teaching women how not to care, then I'd like be the first person to sign up for it, because I think women often care too much. So I think it's really interesting, and I'd love to be able to know how we could measure your success based on how little you care about what other people think, you know, if there's a link between the two.
Yeah, that would be interesting, but no, I really don't care. So when we launched our brand, I didn't tell anyone that I knew that we were launching a brand, because I know that the response will be, but what do you know about skincare? You run a portrait photography studio, you can't do this. So I prefer not to listen to negative comments, but at the end of the day, I don't really care. I will just plow ahead and move along and grow my business.
Good for you. Grainne, have you anything to say on that? Any experiences you can share? I think men versus women thing.
Similar to Sonia, I think if you're going in, not ignorant about it, but I think if you're plowing through an industry that, like, for me, first of all, I'd be very conscious of the language I use. I try not to be apologetic in any of my emails or use the word just or anything like that. So I'm very straight with my emails, very upfront about talking about money, about budgets. So I think they're just lessons that I've learned over time. Maybe it's a female male thing, I'm not too sure. But I think in my industry, there's less than, I can't quote me now, but less than 10% of my industry are female creative directors. So I'm ignorantly plowing through an industry where I could be on set with 30 men and I might be the only woman there, but I'm so ignorant because I've never been to film school and all this, that I'm so not aware of all the biases that are there, and I just plow through.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a good thing that I didn't kind of inherit anything along the way, but I completely don't even care as well either. Of kind of, I try to treat myself like everybody else treats everybody else on set, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, that seems like a good place to end. I think we've just got down to our last minute. So on behalf of the AwakenHub team and everyone who joined us tonight, I just want to say a huge thank you to both of you. You're incredible women. Do you know what I mean? It never ceases to amaze me just how fantastic Irish women are. And I think we should probably put a few Irish people forward to kind of solve the problems of the world and have it done in no time. So Sonia and Grainne, thanks a million. You know, looking forward to having you guys join us for other events and stuff down the road. The 10th of November is the date for our next event. So if everyone wants to put that in your diary, it'll be another speaker event, and we'll have one more event before Christmas, which will be slightly more frivolous. The planning is afoot, so we'll let you know when we figure that out. But thanks to everybody. Have a fantastic evening, and see you all online. Okay, thanks very much.
Thanks, Sinead. Thanks, Claire.
Bye.